I have used my watch app, Timepiece, to record daily tasks for years now. Its reports are on a task-by-task basis. To do monthly and weekly reports for billing, I have been highly dependent on Excel scripts. Every month, a lot of manual fiddling about. Will I be able to set up an OpenAI Assistant to do all that reporting for me in only one command? Now, what should this assistant really do? This is an example of an old Timepiece report of mine. The watch can upload this type of files to my Google Drive. Here I have downloaded one of my files to my local computer to test processing it with an assistant. We want this file summed up per week and per month in the end. So what do we need to create this assistant and run it from our PC? First of all, we need an OpenAI account that can be built. Then from that account we need an API key, and that is done through the OpenAI webpage. We need to have Python 3 running with a quite new version. And then we need to download the OpenAI library for Python using pip install, like it is described in the OpenAI webpage. So when all the preparation is done, we can start creating the actual assistant. There are two ways to do this. One is via actual API calls, and the second one is via the web page or the playground. I chose to do this in the web page because it's much easier to understand what you're doing, and you can see that everything works okay. And you can also test it out using the web page. You don't need to run it yourself. In this video, I will do a combination of creating the actual assistant in the web page and then using it using code. The only thing I need to use an assistant that is created in the web page is the assistant ID. So let's copy that one for later. So the tools that this assistant will use is Code Interpreter. So let's check that box. The ChatGPT instructions for this assistant are based on the input format and what output I expect to get out of it. The input file is a CSV file with this type of content. Not really standard, but it's parsable. For the output, we want both a weekly and a monthly summary of time spent on different tasks. And then it's time to start writing the code that will run this assistant from my laptop. I'm doing a terminal or console Python program. This is what is needed for that. We start off with the imports we need in this code. I use libargparse, that is what is handling the CLI interface or the command and switches. Then some libraries to handle files, JSON, and waiting, because we need to do some polling. That is followed by some presenting, markdown in console. We need a config to read the API key from the terminal. And finally, we need the OpenAI lib itself. Then we set some constants. The assistant ID that we copied from the playground. We set an environment variable with the API key before we initiate the OpenAI object, and this is required by OpenAI. Finally, we have a function that reads the CSV file and uploads it into OpenAI. We keep track of the response ID of this file. We will need it later when we create the thread and the run. In the main routine that starts now, we set up the -h description, then initiate the parser and define the parameters -n, -v and the prompt. Then we do the actual parsing. On the -n or new command, we check that the file exists, then call the upload function that we talked about earlier. On version, we just print the version and exit. Finally, we check that we get a prompt to run this assistant. Then, here are the main action. We start the console with a spinner called Pong, create both a new thread and run for our assistant with the file IDs and the reference to the assistant. Then we go into polling mode. We wait 20 seconds between each poll. I don't really know how often we should do this, but sounds fair. 20 seconds. We wait for 20 seconds and then we retrieve the run to check its status. If it is completed, failed, expired, or cancelled, we break out of the polling. Else, we just get back into waiting another 20 seconds and repeat the cycle. So, when we are out of this polling cycle and the status actually is completed, we proceed to print the result in console. First, I do a debug printout of the entire thread, and then I do the actual markdown nice printout of each message in the thread, what is actually the result. Now, do note that we are under 100 lines of Python to be able to run this assistant. And that's quite nice, I think. Now, if you're interested in this series on the OpenAI API, do like and subscribe. There are new releases in this area all the time. So, let's do an assistant run in real time. In my terminal window, I call it like this: .assist.py-n, current file 2020-1102.csv, and then process these data. And in this command, assist.py is the code we just described, and the current file CSV is the timepiece CSV file. Now, this call takes about 2 minutes to finalize until completion, so I'll speed it up a bit. First, we get some lines from the polling. While the assistant is still working, it says in progress. Then we get the thread as a debug printout, at least for now. And after that, we get each markdown message printed. The newest one first, the original command prompt in the bottom. Do note that we get the result in 2 messages. So right now, I don't know an easy way to separate out the result from the actual processing. So I print out all the messages of the thread as a result. And then, what does it really cost to run this assistant? let's look into my OpenAI console on usage. I got one cost for ChatGPT and one for Code Interpreter. The sum ends up at 10 cents per report, or at least for 2 minutes of work. Doing one per month, I'd say it could be worth it. And these prices are as of January 24. Now, were those reports correct? Or did I lose some income here? I did a comparison between my manual calculations and the assistant calculations reports. If we look at the weekly basis, now my recorded work hours should have been in the 45 to 50 hour range per week, not 20-ish. The assistant has lost about 305 hours in this quarter, or 100 hours per month. That's a lot. If we look into the monthly base, this should be in the range 180 to 220, but it has lost 537 hours in this quarter. A bit too much, in my opinion. Okay, yeah, I know. The CSV input format is not 100% spot on, but in real life, when is it ever really on a total scale? The weekly loss is not the same as the monthly loss. Why? These assistant reports are not worth the 10 cents they cost. I will keep doing my reports in LibreOffice Calc manually for now. So, if you want to know more on the Timepiece app, just look into one of my very first videos on this channel. Cringe warning. And if you want to know more on what OpenAI's assistants are supposed to be, check out the suggested video. And yeah, click it, and I'll see you in there in just a second.